week 7 in our Ready to Homeschool 6-month countdown challenge. And I just wanted to make sure that you were able to find my blog. I haven't figured out if YouTube is deleting my comments that have links in them or not posting them or whatever, but my blog is the same as the YouTube channel, so hilarioushomeschooling.com. If you go to that blog, you should be able to find the handouts for each week. So I just wanted to say that to make sure you're able to find them. This week we're talking about chores and life skills. I know this still doesn't feel like an academic homeschooling discussion, and I've already said that before. But again, there are so many different things to lay the foundation to add that final layer of academics on. And I want to make sure that you are understanding each little piece and how it fits together. So today we're going to be talking about life skills, which actually can be put on your high schooler's transcript if you end up homeschooling through high school, because life skills are, that's considered an education. That's things like doing chores, cooking, laundry, mending clothes, gardening, car repair, whatever you would think of that maybe doesn't get covered in a different academic subject, but you still want your child to know before they leave your house, that would be considered a life skill. Plus, as you're teaching them, you're also getting some help with the different responsibilities of running a house. So it's kind of a good thing. It's a good combination to work toward. And I want to encourage you to remember that work is good. God created man and gave him jobs to do even before the fall and sin entered the world. So the idea of work is a good thing. The devil has made us want to be lazy, telling us that we shouldn't have to work, that we should just lay back and take it easy and let everybody else do all the hard work. But that's not what God says in his word. I do have a lot more verses that cover the idea that there are Bible lessons on work, and there's I have a little tiny 12-page booklet. If you want to, you can go to the contact me page at my website and ask for it, and I will send it to you. But that's a whole bigger discussion that I didn't want to cover all of it today. My point is that every member of your family who is responsible enough to have a chore, and that's about age 2 and up, should have some kind of chore that they're responsible for every day. That can be giving water to a cat, making a bed, picking up toys at the end of the day. I realized that this was an obedience issue when our first son was capable of understanding what I was asking him to do, but was playing dumb. And it took me a little while to realize that he was really manipulating me. But he can do a chore. As soon as they're able to understand and obey, they're able to do a chore. You have to adjust it for age appropriateness. You can't have your 2-year-old whipping up an egg casserole for you or whatever. I'm just saying, think about what your child's capable of and then have them do that on a regular basis. I don't want to necessarily give you exact chores that go with exact ages, because you know your child best and every child's different. I remember when Amelia climbed up on the washing machine around age 3 and insisted that I show her how to run all the buttons and pour in the laundry detergent because she wanted to take over doing laundry as a 3-year-old. So not every 3-year-old's going to do that for you. And I didn't actually let her take on all the responsibility, but it was really nice to have her starting a load of laundry every day. So there's different stages that go into learning a chore. The first stage is watching, and that may not seem like they're doing anything, but when a child is paying attention to you doing the different steps in front of them, they are learning. The next step is to learn with their hands and actually be involved and do it. The next stage is the apprentice, where they're actually kind of doing it, but you're still around to guide them or answer questions. And the last step is mastery. Pretty much all of my kids can make cookies in the kitchen without me needing to be anywhere close. So that would be a mastery level. But there's other chores that I would not turn them loose on yet, like changing the oil in a car, for example. I don't even know how to do that. So that's another thing, is you have to decide which chores you're going to divvy up to the household. The house needs to serve your family, not the other way around. The house is there for you. So there's going to be messes. You need to expect that there's going to be messes. Homeschool is going to add a complexity on top of ordinary messes that you didn't see coming. In order to have the resources that you need to teach your kids at home, there's going to be more stuff in the house. But I wanted to encourage you with a verse from Proverbs. Proverbs 14:4 says, and at first this doesn't seem like it has to do with cleaning, but it says, "Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes an abundant harvest." My cousin Heidi brought this to my attention a long time ago, pointing out that this seems to be about farming. That, if you don't have any oxen in the barn, you don't have to go clean the stall. But it can also be said of a home. If you're really not raising kids or doing anything, if you're running an Airbnb or a Vrbo and you just have a shell of a house, there's not much being produced there. But if you have an active family that you're launching in several different directions, many different times a week, you're going to have some messes that have to be cleaned up on a regular basis. So the principle of not having an oxen and having a clean manger also goes to not having a family and being able to keep a clean house. So you might not be able to have it both ways while you're homeschooling a large family. So you have to adjust some expectations. Does your family value simplicity, or does your family value resourcefulness? I had to learn this the hard way. When I would compare myself to friends who were very, very clean and neat and organized and tidy, and I would look around at my own life and be in despair. It took me a while. I think I was in my 40s when I realized that I actually would never be able to have the same house that they did because I valued resourcefulness more than they did. Not saying that that's a good thing, a bad thing. It just is. I wanted to be able to have what we needed when we needed it without having to go to a store. Well, that meant that I was saving up all sorts of random things all around our house. Usually I knew where they were, not always. But that meant that I had a mess all the time. I still have a mess all the time. Keeping a clean house is low on my priority list. But if your family values simplicity, you're going to have to find a way to do homeschool in a simpler environment, and maybe you will say no to some of the hands-on projects that go along with different lessons or curriculum. If you know that about yourself, don't buy a hands-on curriculum. Buy one that doesn't have extra craft projects and clay and science experiments. There are ways to homeschool and be simple. I'm not saying that I would have enjoyed it. I love doing hands-on projects with my kids, but just try to think about what your family values and avoid the comparison trap, because you're not working to please other families. You're working to please God. Romans 14:4 says, "Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To his own master he stands or falls, and he will stand, for the Lord is able to make him stand." This idea is that I don't have to compare myself to other people trying to figure out how clean my house needs to be. The Lord knows what we are doing in our home. The Lord knows what you are doing in your home, and the standards might be different for each one of us. And that's okay, because it's not a sin to have a messy house. It's a sin to not take care of your house. I mean, that's a stewardship issue, but it's not a sin to have a messy house. So the goal is not necessarily a clean house. Having chores is for helping your kids to cut their teeth on life skills and responsibility. So what things are you doing now that you know you want your kids to learn before they're out on their own? Do you clean bathrooms once a week, twice a week, once a month? Whatever your standard is, it's okay. But think about how you could teach your kids to take over on that and delegate that responsibility to them. If you're cooking supper every single night at home, is there a night that you could train your kids how to cook and then eventually release that one night a week of cooking to one child or two child, a team? These are things that you have to think through, because your family's different from mine, and I can't tell you how to do this. I know a lot of times in our society, we want to ask the expert how to do it and then just adopt their method. But God gave you wisdom. God gave you ideas and discernment for what to do with your family, because your family's unique. So you can look to the experts and you can ask questions and you can ask for advice and you can read what they wrote, but you're still going to have to adapt it for yourself. There's not a perfect program out there that will definitely work for you 100% of the time. So anyways, think about what chores you're doing in your house right now and what's your ideal. Like, sometimes in a marriage, there's one person who wants everything nice and clean, and there's one person who doesn't mind messes. You're probably going to need to sit down and work out a compromise if that's the case. Some people really honestly can't function in a messy environment. In that case, you're going to have to figure out how you can work together as a family to keep at least one room in the house fairly picked up so that that person has a place to go and function. If both of you are messy, then you are going to end up with a lot of messy rooms in your house. And you have to decide what level of messiness you're okay with. Also, what level of cleanliness is everybody okay with? If you come in with muddy boots and you need to walk across the floor, is somebody going to freak out on you? Or are you able to clean up your own mess as you go back outside? These are all things that you just kind of work out in a relationship anyways, but your kids tend to take on the habits that you and your spouse already have. So you might want to think about that as you're raising little kids. What attitudes are you conveying to them, and what habits are you conveying to them about cleaning the house and taking care of what you have and doing chores? You should have some kind of a plan to teach these skills to your kids by the time they graduate. It doesn't have to be all laid out month by month by month by month. But do you want 2-year-olds cleaning toilets? Generally, when we're using chemicals, people would say no. But 2-year-olds can do other things. Do you want your 10-year-old to be cooking supper for you? A lot of 10-year-olds can, but some can't. So what are your goals? What do you want to be working toward? And how are you going to release some of those things to be their control? Teenagers can do their own laundry. And I think that's a really good way for them to use their time and to release the parent from having to have that responsibility. But that means that you have to communicate whose laundry day it is so that their kids aren't all fighting over the washing machine. Okay, anyways, next point is, should kids be paid? This kind of gets into your own family philosophy again. Do your kids expect an allowance? Do you want your kids to expect an allowance? Do you want to pay them a small amount for each chore that they do in the house? Or is it just going to be expected that they are going to work for you because they live there? At some point, everybody has a house or an apartment or a room somewhere, and they're expected to keep it clean without somebody else paying them for doing that. So at what stage are you going to pay your kids to do something that they're expected to do on their own eventually anyways? For us, it was a good balance to be able to say, we expect you to do this every day. When you do, you're going to earn a little bit of money. It could be 25 cents. It could be $1, not much. But we paid them at the end of the week. And then they were able to use that money to learn their financial skills as well, to be able to understand, okay, well, we took you to the gas station because we needed gas in the car, but I'm not buying you that donut inside. You have your own money for purchases like that. And it kind of keeps your kids accountable to themselves for what they want and what they want to buy and what they want to earn, because they can do extra chores around the house to earn more money. Not every family wants to do things that way, and that's fine. It's just something that you need to think about as you start out assigning chores and life skills. What's your attitude toward working, and how are you going to keep them accountable for doing that work? Money is a good reward. Even grown-ups work for money. So that worked for our family. The last point here is, how are you going to communicate these responsibilities? You can have the best system in the world for, how you're going to teach your kids over the next few years to take independence and responsibility. But unless you're communicating those expectations on a daily or weekly basis, you might not see much headway. So what kind of system or what kind of record keeping chart can you come up with that's going to help your kids know what you expect them to do, and how are they going to communicate back to you that they've done their chore? And what are you going to do if they decide not to do the chore? How are you going to enforce that? What kind of discipline? Is it going to be what we talked about 2 weeks ago, where it's a heart issue and they need to continue learning how to follow through without being lazy? Or is it going to be, you know, that you just withhold the money that they would have gotten and you just do the chore for them? You need to think about what you're conveying to your kids and what kind of system you want to build. I would caution you against overkill. You really don't need a giant elaborate system, because honestly, once you tell your child to do something, that should be all that they need to know that they're supposed to do it. So obedience goes along with this. So I don't think that you need to have, I mean, you can if you want to, but you know, the paper dad bucks or mom money or whatever, and a little tiny store set up in a corner of your house where they can come earn or pay for, you know, something with their dad bucks or their mom money. That can work maybe for the initial training session of how you're going to motivate your kids, but you don't want to be following through on that when they're 15, 16, and 17. So I guess that's why we just decided real money was just as fine, because real little kids are still motivated by quarters and dimes and dollar bills. So there are a lot of different systems out there. For a while, I did something with chore cards before my kids were born. We had little tiny 3x5 cards, and that worked for me for a while. I wasn't able to successfully transfer that to the kids because then there were 3x5 cards floating everywhere. We ended up going to a system that was like this, where we had 4 different cards for the older kids, one for my preschooler, and then a separate list for myself. And each kid got like card A for the whole entire week. And the whole week they were expected to do kitchen duty. This card had to do with cleaning the main areas. This one had to do with the bathroom, and this one had to do with the little kids' play area. So each week then the kids would rotate to a new job, and then they'd be responsible for it all week. This worked out really well when our kids were younger, when they got up and had breakfast, and then when before we started our homeschool for the day, everybody would take care of their responsibilities for about 20 minutes. And there would just be mass chaos. The whole entire house would be working, but everybody working at the same time worked really well back then, because I could kind of keep an eye on who was not doing their job or who had finished early. Now that we have teenagers, we have something more like this. This is organized by day of the week, and it kind of has a different zone for each day. So this one is like the entryway in the front porch. This one is different jobs in the kitchen. Wednesday is different jobs in the bathroom. Thursday is the day we run our antique store, so we really don't do a lot of stuff here at home. Friday, I'm doing my laundry, and then I'm cleaning out the fridge. We try to have most of our chores done by Friday. Big chores we leave for Saturday, and the kids are supposed to clean their own room on Saturday. So this works all right for teenagers. They're expected to sign up for 2 chores every day, and each kid has their own laundry day. So they have a day that they can use the washer and dryer and do as many loads of laundry as they need to. And they're also making lunch for the rest of us on those days too. But this has been working kind of for us. The problem is I'm not very good at enforcing things, and I kind of tend to adopt the attitude that my mom had, which was, as long as I'm here, I'm going to serve you the best I can. And I know that probably in some ways she enabled me as a teenager, because I didn't always help with family chores as a teenager, but she also saw how much work I was putting forth in academics and extracurricular activities and service at the church. And she didn't hound me about doing household chores. I had pretty much learned how to do most of them by the time I was a teenager, a senior in high school. And there was one week every summer she expected us to completely run the house by ourselves, which was very difficult. I ended up being sick by Wednesday afternoon because it just was so physically exhausting. But I guess I'm probably adopting the same attitude for my kids right now, is that if I'm here and I can do a chore for you, I end up doing it because I want them to see what a servant heart looks like. Of course, that means that sometimes I'm doing more than my fair share of the work, but I guess that's probably the way moms usually end up doing things too. So I'll have all of this stuff on the blog. You can download all of these papers and look them over and come up with, oh, one last thing. I am including a list of resources this week of different books and charts and YouTube videos that can actually speak to this area better than I can. I have a very messy house. This is one of those things that Darren and I have just agreed on, that this is not going to be a priority. Having a clean house is not going to be a priority. I spend time teaching the kids, doing service projects at the church, teaching Sunday school, Awana, those kind of things. And so our days are very busy in other ways, and our house has taken a back seat. Maybe we'll catch up with it someday. I don't know. Maybe not. So anyways, I gave you a few experts who will be able to give you better cleaning advice than I can. All right, for week 9, we're going to be discussing the book For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. So make sure you're getting a copy of that book somehow. If you cannot find the link to Amazon on the comments of this video, you can look on my blog and I will try to put some things there somewhere. All right, enjoy your week.